Hello.
My name is Alfonso Fernandez, and this video tutorial contains a practical exercise to delimit water bodies from a SAR Sentinel-1 image in the software Snap. Once we have opened Snap, the first thing we have to do is to incorporate the Sentinel-1 satellite image. The GRD product comes from an IO capture mode. This file is in the folder corresponding to the first practice, and it is a file in a specific Snap format. We open it. In the Product Explorer, the image appears with all the options that can be displayed. The first thing we are going to do is to take a quick look at the metadata of the image. Clicking on the name of the image displays the folders. Double-click on that icon and we will be able to see all the information that is contained in the metadata of this image. There is a lot of information, and among all of that we can find the date, the type of product, the acquisition mode, the geometry, the position of the antenna, the angle of incidence, the trajectory of the satellite, and so on. We can see the location of the image by looking at the bottom left-hand side of the map of the world with the location of the extent of the image. There we have the image, and we can see that it corresponds to a place of the United States near the Great Lakes. Let's close this information, and then we are going to look at the information that is contained in the bands folder. You can see that there are 4 bands, one of amplitude and one of intensity for the VH polarity, and one of amplitude and intensity for the VV polarity. If we double-click on each one of them, they are displayed in such a way that we can compare them using the desktop organization in Windows. So with these icons at the top right, we can link the windows in such a way that scrolling in one window moves to the next image. If this option is not active, you have to check that the 2 icons that allow you to link and synchronize windows are active in the Navigation tab. Next, we are going to calibrate the image. The image is a subset of a scene in GRD mode. It is not calibrated. To do this, close the windows and then go to the radar menu, Radiometric Calibrate. This option will allow us to homogenize the digital levels and transform them to a scale that is interpretable and comparable with other images. First of all, we define the input image, which is the one selected in the Product Explorer, and the resulting image is the input image to whose name is added the procedure code. In this case, cal. In the Processing Parameters tab, we can choose the parameters we want in the resulting product. We indicate that we want the sigma 0 band. Then we run the procedure. In a few moments this procedure is finished, and we can see how on the left side in the Product Explorer we have the calibrated image with 2 bands, sigma 0 VH and sigma 0 VV. We need to transform those 2 bands to a logarithmic scale. So we right-click on each of the bands to transform from a linear scale to decibels. We accept and do the same with the other band. This action has created 2 virtual bands. That is why we find the letter V in the bands icon. To make these bands part of the file and store them in the file, we have to convert them. right-click/convert band. Let's move on to the next process that needs to be done. Since the decibel images have a certain amount of speckle noise, salt and pepper noise, we need to filter that noise out. We are going to do this with the option Radar Speckle Filtering Single Product Speckle Filter. As in the previous tool, we have to indicate which is the source product in this case, the calibrated image resulting from the previous procedure, and which is the target product. The procedure code in this case is SPK. If we go to the Processing Parameters tab, we can select the input bands, the filter type, number of looks, size, and so on. All these are a series of parameters that, depending on the objective of our analysis, need to be assessed. Now we are going to apply a leaf filter and a size of 5 by 5 in X and Y and then run the filtering. We can compare the result of the filtering by visualizing the resulting image in VH polarity in decibels with the previous image. If we compare them vertically, we can see that the filtered image on the right side of the screen has considerably less speckle noise than the unfiltered image on the left side. We can also make a combination between bands. A color combination that helps us to differentiate a priori in an optimal way the water surfaces. To do this, right-click on the noise filtered image to open an RGB window. In this RGB window, there are a number of display profiles defined by default. We are going to use the one that appears first, as this combination highlights the water areas in blue color. We could modify the assignation of bands to red, green or blue. But we are going to use this one, and we can see how the water bodies with this combination appear in blue and black colors. This would allow us to differentiate them better. We still have one more process to do before we can make the delimitation of these water bodies, and that is the terrain correction. That is, the georeferencing and the terrain correction. This needs to be applied to all the SAR images. We are going to do this by applying the tool that we find in Radar Geometric Terrain Correction Range Doppler Terrain Correction. The input image is the filtered image resulting from the previous process, and the result is the same image to which the letters TC are added. In processing parameters, we find many parameters that we could modify and adapt to our needs. In this video tutorial, we are going to leave the default options. But we could change the digital elevation model used to correct for relief. We could also change the reference system that we are going to use in the resulting image, as well as the rest of the options that we can find in this tool. Leaving the default options, we proceed to run the tool. After a few seconds, the tool has finished and we can proceed to visualize the VV band in decibels, for example. In this image we can see how a georeferencing and a relief correction has been applied. Now we are going to proceed to delimit the water bodies and separate them from what is not water. And the first thing we have to do is to calculate the histogram of this band, opening the analysis menu and calculating the histogram. We have to refresh for the histogram of this image to be generated. It can be seen that it is a bimodal histogram where we find a predominant peak belonging to the land pixels and a peak with lower digital levels corresponding to the water pixels. It can be seen how between them, zooming in between the digital values, 18 and 16, we find a relative minimum. This value is going to define the threshold that is going to be used to separate water areas from land pixels, and in this case, as an approximation, we are going to select the value 17.2. We can close this histogram, and with this threshold value we proceed to run the band maths tool. Raster menu band maths. The band to be created will be called water bodies. And we are going to edit the expression that uses the previous threshold. For this we choose the vertical band and we indicate that the values are less than the chosen threshold, 17.2. The arithmetic expression contains no errors, and we can now proceed with the calculation. As you can see, a virtual band called water bodies has been created. Let's convert it to be part of the image and display it again. This is the result of the thresholding of the image. It can be seen that in certain water bodies there are pixels that are distorting the result. These pixels could be reduced by filtering processes or by redefining the threshold that we have used in the previous binarization. And to finish and to be able to use this result in some GIS analysis software, we can export the result of this binarization in image format. To do this, right-click on the View window and Export View as Image. 8800, 12, 22,000, 0, 12, 37,000 in this case. We are going to indicate that we want an image in GeoTIFF format, and that we want to export the whole scene at the maximum resolution. This will transform our binary result into a TIFF format of the whole scene that we can export to another program. For example, QGIS. The image is already exported, and then we can see in QGIS how that image, which I have here, could be incorporated into my analysis software and proceed to carry out the studies and analyses that are appropriate. This is the end of this video tutorial. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you for your attention.